You're listening to Come Curious,
the one about sex magic.
Ooh! Oh my god, I'm so excited to talk about this.
Oh yeah, I bet you are.
I bet you fucking are, you spiritual hippie.
No judgment, absolutely no judgment. We have the incredible Anastasia coming on the podcast, who is a sex witch. Priestex, they call it. And we have a very, very fun in-depth talk about sex magic. And if anybody is into spirituality, then this is the episode for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is super, super meaningful, this work, and something that we were talking about when we wrapped up the podcast was how sometimes spiritual practices like this are really important for people that have been through trauma but don't feel comfortable to talk to a therapist. Yeah. And that can be a lot of people, you know, because talking about your trauma can be a lot harder than actually doing like spiritual activities to try and get through it as well. And I just think there's such a huge space for this kind of work. And I think what they do is amazing. And it, you know, it really helps you connect with yourself, your sexuality, your gender, your kink. And that was one of the things I really loved about this conversation, was that how kink can be so intertwined with healing and sex magic and just learning about ourselves.
Especially if you're someone who has gone through to doctors and nurses and done all like the scientific medicine way and it's not working for you and it hasn't worked, then looking into the spiritual side of things, looking into, I mean, even my therapist was like, when it comes to physical issues, physical trauma, where science has failed you, go into sex magic and somatic therapy and touch and spirituality, and that could be life-changing for so many people.
Yeah, I mean, people that have never orgasmed before and people that have like pain during sex, there's a lot of like psychological things that we can't work through ourselves, and these kind of things are really, really fucking beneficial.
Yes, very excited to have them on.
Anastasia, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan for a long time, so it's great to finally be on here.
Yay! Glad we could facilitate. Thank you so much. And of course, for all of our listeners, can you introduce yourself? Who are you? Because you and Florence know each other.
Woo! So I've interviewed Florence for one of my episodes on my podcast, and that podcast is all about sex magic, because I am a pleasure priestex, which means that I teach people how to activate their sexual energy through pleasure magic, pleasure medicine, in order to heal, alchemize, embody, and then turn this energy and create this energy into the impact they want to manifest onto the world. We all have so many passions on how we want the world to grow and to be more inclusive and to be more accessible and more diverse and more gorgeous and delicious. And I love being the channel to allow people the healing medicine they need in order to align to that dream and vision of what they have.
It's so cool. Sex magic, basically.
Sex magic.
It's very, very awesome. How long have you been doing it for?
Teaching sex magic specifically, a couple of years. Have been teaching spiritual teachings for about 4 years, practicing sex magic for about 5 years. It was super intuitive to my journey. It really does feel like this medicine was given to me as a channel for me to share. I started practicing it within my own kind of awakening of self as I explored. It kind of interlinked with my own kinky journey, my polyamorous journey, my queer journey, my autosexual journey. And as I was exploring all these definitions of self and conditions of self that I had linked to my identity, the more I explored the consciousness expansion that came with sex magic. And that consciousness expansion now shows up in a much more shamanic way in the way that I teach, in the way that I serve myself through sex magic. And it's a lot of very intense, very multidimensional astral projection kind of work to do the healing, to do the alchemization. But it really did start with me learning what it was my body enjoyed, what my boundaries of consent were, and how I was interacting with my body, how I played with this idea of being non-binary and what that meant to me, how I lent into the different relationships I had, sex or romantic or otherwise. And it's been a really beautiful process of just knowing more about myself and how I interact with the world around me, and then how I can share those teachings and those learnings with everyone that I get to meet.
I hope that you enjoyed this clip of the podcast, but it was not the full episode because YouTube loves to censor us.
If you want to watch the full explicit version of each of our episodes, join us on Patreon for as little as $1 or £1 a month.
As well as the episodes being ad-free, you also get access to our live Q&As, which we do twice a month. You can also listen to the full episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast platforms if you don't want to come over to our Patreon.